Titans, go!
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, a.k.a. Titan Talk, the Doom Patrol podcast this time. I'm Charles Skaggs, ready to talk some Doom Patrol as we sit here in lovely, scenic Doom Manor with my favorite Titan Talker, everybody's favorite Titan Talker, Jesse Jackson.
That's right, Charles. They're not saying boo. They're saying doom.
Or if you're a Futurama fan, you're a fan of the newscaster on or Anchorman on Futurama, doomed.
Yeah, hey, we've got another fun one.
Maybe I ought to get that audio clip.
Yeah, we've got another fun one to talk about.
Yes, we do. Today here on Titan Talk, we're going to talk about Puppet Patrol, the third in the increasingly repetitive story titles ending in Patrol. The third episode of Doom Patrol Season 1 that was released just a few days ago on March 1st, 2019. Written by Tamara Becker-Wilkinson and Tom Farrell, and directed by Rachel Talalay, which is very interesting to me because Jesse, of course, we've talked about Rachel Talalay on Next Stop Everywhere because she's a famous Doctor Who director. She's directed a lot of big episodes in the Peter Capaldi era, and she's also done a lot of work on CW shows like The Flash and Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow, and she's going to be directing an upcoming episode of American Gods Season 2.
Oh, very nice.
So, among other things, but she's a very cool director. Obviously, she also directed the movie Tank Girl, if you're familiar with that.
I am.
But very cool. And here she is bringing that skill set to Doom Patrol with a very interesting episode called Puppet Patrol. So I can't wait to talk about it with you, Jesse, and I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I liked it. Once again, this show continues to surprise me. Just the right amount of quirkiness. They really, and it's especially interesting because, you know, they talk about often that TV is a writer's medium, not a director's medium. And so even though we've had different directors, the writers have really caught the tone they want, and they've done a great job of making this just a little bit different than every other comic show out there that's on TV.
Yeah, and obviously we talked about that a little bit last week, but a lot of people are picking up on that they're appreciating that, or they're appreciating Doom Patrol because it's actually different. It's not the same old superhero TV show.
Yes.
It brings something new to the table, something odd and unexpected, because I don't think anybody knows where this show is going to go. Even me, an old school Doom Patrol fan, doesn't even know where this show's going to go. So I'm pretty excited about that, and I think that's a great thing. And I think, bringing your point to the writers, I think so far we've only had 3 episodes, but I think the first 3 episodes have been consistently more on point than the first 3 episodes of Titans, which seem to be kind of all over the place and kind of stumbling around.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit and
or is it just my imagination here?
No, I think you're right on. And you know that the reason, at least I won't speak for you, but I think I'm speaking for you. The
Go
reason
right.
we
Go ahead.
got DCU is because of the Titans. I mean, that
Yeah.
was enough for us. Oh, live action Titans?
Yep.
Even if it sucks, I'm in. I'm going to support the franchise. And we did. We enjoyed the first season, and it had its
Exactly.
faults, but we had a good time. But it does seem like,
Titans was good, but this is great so far.
yeah, I mean, this is, this has kind of brought it up to a different level. And
Yes.
so I'm really impressed, and continue to, and I know we're going to talk about this, but what I thought was a throwaway, oh yeah, okay, so they're going to make Negative Man gay, okay, has
Right.
really been a nice twist, and they've done a lot with it. So
Yeah, that's one of the things I want to talk about in our
Okay.
first topic.
Okay.
But yeah, a Negative Man obviously gets the spotlight in this episode, and I can't wait to talk about that.
Absolutely.
All right, let's run down the guest cast
Sure.
this time. Returning from a very brief cameo in the pilot is Julian Richings as Heinrich Von Fuchs, who was, of course, the scientist that made Eric Morden into Mr. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
and the evil Nazi scientist. And he's been in some interesting places. He's a very interesting character actor. He was in the movie Man of Steel as Lore M, one of the Kryptonian Council elders.
Okay.
So if you look sharply, you'll spot him there. He was also on the TV series Orphan Black recently.
Okay.
He played one of the more notorious characters on the show toward the end of the series. He was also in episodes of Hannibal, The Magicians, and he's been in a lot of different places. And he's a very interesting, visually interesting actor because he has just this kind of Ichabod Crane-like face.
And he did several episodes playing Death in Supernatural. In case I missed that, yeah.
Yeah, you might have. I've never watched Supernatural, but I know a lot of people have. So that's a good. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
And he, exactly your point of his character actor and his persona really served that role well.
Yeah, and he obviously does a great job here as Heinrich von Fuchs.
Yes.
And we also had Alec Mapa as Steve Larson, who at the very end of this week's episode becomes a very obscure classic Doom Patrol villain, and which I cannot wait to talk about.
Okay, yeah, because I did not recognize that. I did recognize Alex. Alec has been in a lot of different shows. I first saw him on Entourage. He played one of Ari Gold's assistants, and he was very funny in that show. He's done other like just small roles in TV shows, but I always think he's a fun actor.
Yeah.
And he's
been in he was on the TV series Ugly Betty.
Yeah.
And he was even in an episode of Alias, which is I'm a big fan of, the ABC series starring Jennifer Garner. And he was even in an episode of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles back in the day. So that's going way back, I'm sure, but often, very, very interesting.
Yeah, he often plays a lot of a very flamboyant, out of the closet gay character,
right?
And so I think that persona served him really well in this role because he looks so unthreatening.
Right. He's just this kind of nerdy guy.
Yeah.
But that ends up going down to try to get some superpowers from Von Fuchs.
Yeah, because he wants to be, and he wants to be a villain.
Yeah, he's an aspiring supervillain.
Yeah, I just think that was really fun.
Yep. So we'll see how that obviously plays out.
Good.
But we also had Charmin Lee as Elinore Stone, the mother of Vic Stone, making her debut. Mm-hmm. She was recently on Black Lightning as a character named Bettina, and she's been on episodes of the Showtime series Outcast.
Okay.
Which I enjoyed quite a bit, based on the Image comic series by Robert Kirkman. And she was also on the TV series Powers, which was based on the comic book by Brian Bendis and Michael Avon Emming.
Never watched it.
So, yeah, Powers was okay. It wasn't great. That was the one that was on the Sony PlayStation network,
right.
and lasted all of 2 seasons before Sony realized that maybe PlayStation cannot be a network.
Yeah. My brother, hi Dean, I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
Is a huge Powers fan. He adored the comic and was.
I enjoy the comic quite a bit.
Yeah, I did too, and totally against this show because he thought the casting was absolutely just wrong in every way. And so his passion against it and the mediocre rating, I'm like, I don't know if I want to work that hard to try to see this.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, if you're very curious to check it out, I think it's worth checking out.
Okay.
It's definitely doesn't quite have the tone of the comic book. The second season was, I think, a little bit better than the first season, but the tone just feels completely wrong. It doesn't have that noir feel to it that I think Powers the comic book has. Okay. And that's just my opinion. But we're not the Powers podcast. We're going to be talking Doom Patrol, so we should probably move on. Kyle Clements played John Bowers, the paramour of Larry, Negative Man, in this episode. He's been in, obviously had some cameo appearances up till now in the previous 2 Doom Patrol episodes. He's been on episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he was in the movie Terminator Genisys, very minor roles, and he was also on an episode of The Walking Dead.
Okay.
So if you're curious, you probably run to IMDb and figure out, which episodes he's in if you want to try to spot him elsewhere.
Okay.
If you want to play that game. All right. So, anything else before we move on to our main topics?
The Julie McNiven plays
Larry's wife.
Yeah. She's been in a couple of episodes. I think she's an interesting actress. I liked her when she was on Mad Men. It was a very small part. She has been on Supernatural. And I thought she did a really good job of playing the role she had to play, where she knows her husband has a secret, and her trying to be supportive, but also trying to protect herself and her kids. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, her character has a lot because, being set in the 60s.
Yes.
She was a victim of the time period, but also the fact that, her husband has this secret life, which we'll talk about here in a minute.
Good.
All right. So let's talk about that. So first topic I want to talk about, and I'm doing movie quotes this week.
Okay.
I'll give you that hint. Okay. So, and they're all from the same movie. So see if you can guess which movie. First quote: "Our situation has not improved."
Okay.
Okay. And this is a famous movie, so hopefully you'll eventually get this one. This I want to talk about is Larry, of course, his wife, and John Bowers. So we get a lot with Larry. We get a major flashbacks in 1961, pretty much focusing on the night before Larry's experimental trip, his flight, and the accident, of course, that turned him into Negative Man. So I want to get your thoughts on this because Larry's got some drama going on, and he's still, all these years later, 50 plus years later, reliving that drama, and hasn't quite come to terms with it yet. And it's also, I think, part of why he's having difficulty with the negative spirit inside him. So I want to get your thoughts on Negative Man.
So first off, I do not understand why the night before you're doing this test that could be very dangerous and possibly could get you on the Mercury program, why you're staying out late with anyone. Just anyone.
Right.
Much less in the back of a pickup truck Um, you
Yeah,
know,
Larry's not making some good decisions here,
he
but
is not.
I think he's just he has this, he has this desire, and unfortunately, he's putting that desire over his responsibilities
Yeah,
as
I
a
think he
husband.
is.
Yeah.
And the it it is a very very um strange time where, especially in this role, you have to be deep in the closet.
Right.
There is no way in the early 60s, um, as a test pilot, you are going to be coming out of the closet.
Well,
And
if nothing else, if they found out, they would get him kicked out of the military.
exactly.
So
So I thought that was it.
he could lose everything if that came
Yeah,
out.
and I did love. I think his wife subtly was trying to say, "I thought you weren't going to go out when we moved to, having beers with the boys."
Yeah.
And
You get the impression that had happened before, because she talked about, like, well, you promised you wouldn't be doing this. Like the
yeah,
first time we moved, and then the second time we moved, and then now here.
yeah, I do think it's very clear that each
He's
time
he's been doing this a
I'm going to
while.
stop. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop.
Right.
And um, his partner, and we assume lover,
Yeah.
is trying to, hey, let's just leave. Let's just go.
You're talking about
And
John,
yeah,
right?
and
Yeah.
Larry's like, no, I want to be an astronaut. I have too
I,
much in my life, and it isn't. At least I did not catch. No, I don't want to hurt my wife or my kids. This is all about his career more than anything else. Do you get that feeling?
I think that's part of it.
Okay.
Or the fact that he's using it as an excuse.
Okay.
That I I think he's trying to have it all,
Mm-hmm.
and he wants the secret life. He does, but he still
Mm-hmm.
wants to be there for his wife, and that yet he also wants to. He's an aspiring astronaut. If you to put the remember, this isn't these flashbacks were in 1961, which is the very early days of the space program.
Exactly.
So this is still like 8 years before the moon landing.
Mm-hmm.
To put it in historical
Yeah.
context. So this is like, this was the gig to get,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
especially if you're in the Air Force, and especially if you're a pilot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Larry's determined to make this work however possible. And even though that he knows this flight is risky, he's still going to do it because, and even, he tells his wife that he goes like, look, I could die tomorrow.
Yeah.
But he's still going ahead because that's what a test pilot does.
Yeah.
He's that fearless when it comes to flight, but
Mm-hmm.
he has this very private fear
Yeah.
of having the secret come out, but he doesn't want to lose his lover either.
Exactly.
He's not willing to let him go to be with his wife to keep things, from getting out and upsetting everything. He's trying to have it all, and as a result, he ends up with nothing really.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, I was thinking there when she's sitting there at the counter, kind of the little kitchen bar
Right.
that often back then you had in those, and she's just smoking, thinking,
Drinking.
and he gets a glass of milk, cliche much, all American pilot.
Exactly.
And like, well, I've got to go. I got to go to bed. And once again, I just kept thinking, now you're saying you got to go to bed, but he is, and I think you said it perfect. He wants to have it all. He wants the family. He wants the career. He wants to see, he wants to go have beer with the guys, but he also wants to be a
Right.
hotshot pilot. And I had not thought about, but you're just perfect. It He ended up with nothing.
Yes.
Yeah, so very well done.
Yeah, he keeps scrambling to try to get everything and keep this, like, he's juggling all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while there, it was working, but
Yes.
it's obviously been a strain.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
ultimately, when this accident happens, it's this house of cards that just collapses in on itself.
It really is.
And
Yes.
like, we got the impression where when um, his wife is talking to him about his usual excuse, like going out and having a beer with the guys,
Yeah.
and the way she says it gives me the impression that she knows what he's really up to.
Oh, I have no doubt she knows that.
But
Absolutely.
of course, they've never openly discussed it.
No, no, you can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially back then, I'm sure it just with the idea, just the mere thought of it, was just forbidden to her. Like
Yeah.
this, in polite society, we don't discuss this.
No, and
We'll dance around it, but we're not
right.
going to discuss this openly.
Yeah, because she's going to feel this is just as much her failure as it
Right.
is his.
Right.
In her mind, if I was a better wife, he wouldn't need this, which of course is not true whatsoever, but it is what she felt like at the time.
Right. And
Yeah.
John, meanwhile, is more out than Larry is.
A
And
little bit.
a
Not,
little bit. I mean,
yeah.
well, compared to Larry,
Yeah. Oh,
like
absolutely. Yeah.
like John apparently he has some friends or whatever, and
Yeah.
I think he's just wanting Larry to be with him
Hmm.
and just look, leave your wife. You obviously don't love her. You might as well accept who you are.
Yeah.
So he's putting pressure on Larry there, but Larry's not willing to commit to that.
No.
And as a result, he starts to lose John. He storms
Yeah.
off after their talk. And he says, well, like, hey, we'll talk about it later
Hmm.
after the flight.
Yeah.
But of course, that's when everything goes to hell.
It does.
And, and that changes, obviously, his life forever.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting to see, how many people he killed with the radiation.
Right.
Obviously, not what he wanted to do, but it was, and they've got them all in the, the hazmat suits and all that.
Because, that was interesting the way that Rachel Talalay shot that. Was
Yeah.
that she kind of left it vague.
Yes.
Like you weren't sure what killed these doctors. Like, was it the negative spirit, or was it? And now, being comics book fans, we know that Larry, the reason he wears the bandages, is because they're treated to prevent his radiation from leaking out, so
Right.
he can move around other people.
Yes.
But it's not laid out like that on the TV show, not yet.
No, and I was,
It was very just hinted at.
yeah, I'm sure you knew, being a bigger fan, but I did not know, did the negative guy kill all these people?
Right.
Is this internal beast? Um,
And you notice we never got to see the negative spirit emerge for the first time from Larry.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of wondering if they're going to save that for another flashback down the road.
I don't know. If I had one frustration,
Yeah.
I wanted him and whatever the energy being inside to communicate more.
Yeah.
I thought there was a point where, when he's in the
The machine.
the machine, and where they have been separated.
They actually this is the first time they're actually able to converse face to face.
Yeah.
Because usually when the negative spirit is out, Larry's unconscious.
Hmm. Yeah.
So they've never been able to directly communicate
Hmm.
until this first time.
Yeah.
So what did you think of that sequence? I mean, when Larry is just unloading on the negative spirit, like, look, you ruined my life.
Hmm.
And then the negative spirit kind of like, well, then we kind of see John emerge, at least a vision of John.
Yes.
And saying, no, you did.
Yeah, and the reality is it is him who did this. He did not. Yes, and we don't know yet from the TV show. You might know because of that. What is this creature and why it ended up taking over him? But we don't know yet as a TV audience. And so you're looking at going, well, what is happening and what is going? But this is all missteps that Larry did. That he took. He tried to have it all, and I keep coming back to your statement, and got nothing, which is perfect.
Now, he did kind of try to say, I'll take a little bit of responsibility. Back in 1961, we see him in the flashback after the accident.
Yeah.
When he's kind of kept in isolation.
Right.
And his wife goes to visit him. Now, she says, well, look, sorry about your accident, but, I'm going to take the kids and, we're leaving. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but when John comes along later in the flashbacks, John is reaching out to Larry. John is going, look, I re-upped in the Air Force to be with you. And Larry says, no, please go.
Yeah, and
so he kind of sends him away. He doesn't want to be that trap, I guess.
And I don't understand totally why he's doing that. Because he could have. I guess he's just too tired of playing the role, and so he couldn't just.
Or just he has way too much to deal with right now.
Yeah.
He can't deal with John on top of everything else.
Yeah. It was John came very close to being a little too honest,
right?
But he kept it undercover enough that I don't think he did anything wrong.
Right.
But it was it was very well done, and you got a little more feedback into what Larry is thinking and kind of where he came from. Were you surprised that he went into the machine without worrying about the consequences at all? I was thought that was a little short-sighted of him.
Right.
And a little selfish of him, like, well, hey, if I can get fixed, yay.
Well, I don't think he went in there to get fixed. I think he was just, maybe he was hoping to get fixed.
Okay.
But maybe he just figured, well, I'll roll the dice, and if this thing kills me, it kills me.
Okay.
Because
fair enough.
we know that from the previous episode we talked about that Larry has this tendency to run away from things.
Yeah. Good point. Good.
So.
Yeah.
Just something to consider, but it's obviously making him a very complex character.
Yes, I agree.
And one of the other things I thought was interesting, might as well bring this up really quickly, is that that scene where Larry asked Jane how she manages all her personas, all her personalities, and she talks about like, well, hey, it's because I respect them; they're right to exist. And then she calls him out and says, well, like maybe if you weren't you, maybe you could, maybe your negative spirit would treat you better.
Yeah, the whole idea, I don't try to control them.
Right.
They don't try to control me. We live in a...
we coexist.
Yeah, a spirit of détente, so to speak, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah. So basically this is the start of Larry coming to terms with the negative spirit inside him.
And I just Jane continues to be just one of my favorite characters. I just love how they have are showing her and doing it. I just think she's been great.
Yeah, she's great. We're obviously I want to talk about her in our third topic.
Okay, good.
But yeah, she was. Jane obviously has a lot going on,
Mm-hmm.
discussed, especially about her personas
Okay,
that we'll talk about later.
good.
But Jane always seems to be that great character that just says something interesting that kind of either pushes a character in one direction or just completely upends everything,
Okay,
which I thought was very interesting.
good.
All right. Anything else about Larry
Nope,
before we
nope.
move on? All right. Second topic I want to talk about. You should have listened to your father.
Okay.
And the second topic obviously is Vic, aka Cyborg, and his father Silas, and also his mother Elinore, who we're introduced to via flashback. And I want to get your thoughts on Cyborg having some problems with his dad, because Cyborg's ready to try to make it his own way without his dad, and his dad is not happy with that.
No, he's not. And it we had talked about in the past, we saw Vic's dad being a little more manipulative in the comic. You saw this a little bit here.
Right.
And so I thought it was a little bit of a jerk move to, oh yeah, I support you 100%, but you want to be your own man? Then yeah, no corporate card, no corporate jet. Star Labs isn't there to help you.
Yeah, I'm cutting off your funding.
Yeah, and
I'm taking my ball and going home.
yeah, I I do think it was kind of arrogant of Vic to think he could just use Star Labs stuff without asking someone.
Right.
But I also think that it was worth his dad going, hey, we should talk about this.
Right.
Because we do not have a blank checkbook. So I think that was an interesting discussion back and forth, and I liked in a way, but I also kind of thought it was
A jerk
petty
move. Yeah.
at the end where, well, I've got your back. No, you didn't. Now you're just being the big swooping in to save
Right.
us. So I'm not sure.
It just kind of seemed to me that Silas was just using this as a way to control his son and
Exactly.
in a way to micromanage his son. That's the impression I got.
I
That
agree.
okay, Vic tries to be his own man. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to look for Niles Calder, the
Yeah.
chief. And you would think Silas would be down with that.
Yeah, he would be.
But for whatever reason, and maybe there's something in the past that we don't know about yet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's some friction between Silas and the chief at some point. Silas is not happy with this. He doesn't like Victor hanging out with these freaks. We talked about this last time. And he's kind of resentful that Victor is being his own man. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, like we talked about, that Vic's not being, on the program that we set together for him to grow and be a superhero and join the Justice League.
Right.
This wasn't part of the plan. And so when Vic naturally assumes that, well, hey, my dad's helped me out with this dozens of times before, this shouldn't be a big deal. And he tells the team, hey, look, no worries, how about a corporate jet to travel down to Paraguay? So when he calls his dad, and his dad just is like, I don't know, you're doing your own thing, so I guess you'll just have to make it on your own, son. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And Vic is just like, wait, what just happened here?
Yeah.
He's all, he's kind of taken aback. It's like, you don't have my back on this. And so, there's this friction now between Vic and his father. And at the end, when all of a sudden Silas reaches out and calls Vic and says, well, hey, I guess that corporate jet you wanted. Well, suddenly it's available.
Mm-hmm.
So um, either Silas was feeling guilty or Silas was waiting to kind of come in, swoop in, like you said, as the White Knight to the rescue
Yes.
and look like the big savior so that Vic would go running to him enthusiastically. And um, I think it kind of reinforced the um, the concern that Vic is now having about his father, and he's kind of reevaluating this whole um, Team Justice League moment
Yeah.
or
I,
the agreement between the two. What do you
yeah.
think?
No, I think that is very clear, and they have an interesting relationship. I it, I'm not sure. Vic is an interesting character. I
Right.
like how the other guys, especially Robot Man Cliff,
Yeah.
has this. Who put you in charge?
Right.
And this kind of uh,
That was a great scene because Cyborg is just like, well, any of you got bright ideas? Any of you want to step up and be leader? Go right ahead.
yeah, and one of my
No? Yeah. Go.
yeah, one I have I had a guy I used to work with, and he he used to say, and I love this statement. He goes, "If mine's the only idea on the table, it's the best idea." Because too many times people would, "Oh, that's a horrible idea. That's a horrible
Yeah.
idea." And in fact, I love that. If we just do a quick cutaway when Jon Snow is going to talk to the wildlings, and they're like, "That's a horrible idea," and Jon's like, "You're right, it is. Do you have another idea?" Because if you
Yeah.
do, I'm listening.
Right.
And I think I like that with Vic. He's going, "Okay, what's your plan?
Yeah.
If you don't want me to be the leader, then tell me."
And
Um,
and that happens in a lot of groups. I mean, even friendships,
yeah,
where it's just like, okay, nobody else wants to step up and be assertive
yeah,
and take charge. So it's usually falls on one person,
hmm,
and they're kind of, for the most part, reluctant about it, but nobody else is stepping up.
yeah,
And that's how Cyborg feels here, is that like nobody else, and he's kind of frustrated with it. He gets into it with Rita about that.
yeah,
Just, get off your ass, do something. Don't just
hmm,
sit around. Why aren't you out like trying to do something to help find the chief?
yeah, and I really um, I liked Victor and Rita's discussions. I thought that was really a nice interaction together.
Right.
Um, Getting them split up, it was gave us some nice character moments.
Yeah, force them to interact with each other.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
One other thing I want to mention before we move on, the flashback that Vic is kind of having concerns about his actual accident that turned him into Cyborg.
Mm-hmm.
He seems a little skeptical about what his memories are,
Yeah.
and he has grid, and this software inside him, which is something that Jeff Johns introduced in
Mm-hmm.
his Justice League run. So if you're curious about grid,
Okay.
go read that, because that's when Cyborg joined the Justice League.
Okay.
But so he has grid, kind of pull up the footage, and we kind of see how things play out, where Vic gets into an argument with his mother in the lab, and he um, kind of gets mad, and he slings this rack of test tubes against the wall, and then there's this explosion. But if you notice really closely on the footage, the angle that Vic slung those test tubes against the wall, and where the explosion was coming from the far right, it doesn't really look like the test tubes caused the explosion.
No, they didn't.
So the question now is like, can Cyborg trust his memories that are in him? And if the memories have been altered, and what's the real truth? that's being hidden from him. And he has Grid try to verify it. Like, is this footage accurate? And then Grid says, it's authenticated, and even defines authenticated for him as kind of a, like a little being smartass. But I'm not so sure. I think there's more here. And the question is, did Silas alter Victor's memories of what happened? What do you think? What do you think?
I don't think so. I think
I'm just kind of wondering why they would address, like, why would he question the authenticity if they weren't going to do something with the authenticity of that footage?
I think the idea is that we all have memories we don't remember. That we think we remember everything perfectly, but we really don't.
Right.
So I think that's it.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I think it's something to keep an eye on.
I do too.
But I'm just kind of curious because I'm coming from this as a writer, that I'm kind of wondering why they would introduce something like that if they weren't going to do something with that.
Yeah.
And
we'll have to see.
Well, we'll see. So it's just kind of something I noticed, but so maybe we'll table that for now.
Okay. Yeah.
And see if it comes up in the future.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Third and final topic, and hopefully this is where you'll get which movie I'm talking about here.
I have a theory. I
have a
believe,
theory. Okay.
Yes. So okay.
All right. Third quote. Nazis. I hate these guys.
Yes. Mr. Jones. Yes.
Yes.
I thought that's what it was. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm referring, all these quotes were from Indiana Jones and Last Crusade.
Very nice.
So, So Nazis. I hate these guys. We're going to talk about, of course, Heinrich Von Fuchs and Fuchstopia. And Crazy Jane I want to talk about also in this segment because Von Fuchs kind of lays some interesting little tidbits in his conversation with Crazy Jane.
Yes.
About how her personalities were formed and whatnot, and whether Jane is the core personality or not, which I thought was interesting. So, so Von Fuchs. Obviously, we talked about this in the cameo in the pilot episode where he was the Nazi scientist way back in the 30s that turned Eric Morden into Mr. Nobody. And we get a little tidbit of information that, hey, Von Fuchs was part of a supervillain organization called the Brotherhood of Evil.
Yes.
Yes, because and that's from the comics where Eric Morden was just kind of like a henchman guy that helped out the Brain and Monsieur Mala. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe we'll see the Brotherhood of Evil at some point.
We can only hope.
And maybe Madame Rouge and General Zal, the original Brotherhood of Evil. That would be kind of cool. I would kind of dig that if we did. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of nice to at least get the Brotherhood of Evil teased there. And so after turning Eric Morden into Mr. Nobody, essentially we find out that Von Fuchs kept hanging out in Paraguay because he was a Nazi and a fugitive Nazi. And he kept experimenting and kept giving people superpowers and developed this really odd community he's called through no sort of ego whatsoever, Fuchstopia.
Yes.
And where it's this kind of Bavarian type, Austrian type community where you have some either Austrian or German like people dressed in traditional garb that seem either controlled or like android like.
It made it,
And the Tomb Patrol obviously ends up going there to get some information about Mr. Nobody.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, as you talked about it, I got the feeling that they were all him. Right. I don't know how he got the body done, how he created all the shells that he's running, but
there was this line that he said, and I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
He told Jane, you have all these personalities inside one body,
Mhm.
while I have my mind in many bodies.
Right.
So essentially, he's kind of like projecting his consciousness, or controlling or whatever. So even though his body is just this shell in an iron lung, as Jane points out.
Yeah, and because you noticed a couple of times they would stop
Right.
and be like they were all thinking the same thing, and then when she ends up attacking him, they all fall down.
Yeah.
So I thought that was the puppet show was great.
Yeah. It
Um,
was used basically to give a lot of background expository
yeah,
information, and
but
and, and we also find. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was just it was really long, and I love that our heroes are all asleep, and
Except for Jane. Jane's trying to nod everybody awake.
yeah, and then Steve's like standing ovation and just
Yeah, he's on the edge of his seat going,
yeah,
yes.
yes, this is I mean he's like
He's geeking out over it, basically.
he's like this is the latest Avengers movie where they're gonna wrap
Yes.
everything up, and he's just like enthralled, which
Yeah.
I thought was really funny.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting things about the puppet show sequence um, was that we found out that the chief had actually confronted Von Fuchs after turning Eric Morden and Mr. Nobody,
Yes, and
and
in
and
this
apparently,
version,
and
the
apparently
chief
shut.
is the bad guy.
Right. Yeah. So that's how he's depicted in this puppet theater.
Yeah,
And that the chief apparently shot Von Fuchs for whatever reason and took something from him. We don't know what he took,
no,
but it's kind of implied that, like obviously it was something very important. Now, does this have any connection with Mr. Nobody? And maybe that's the reason why Mr. Nobody took the chief. We don't know yet,
no, we don't.
but it's kind of interesting. And obviously you're getting this from the supervillain's point of view about what happened.
Yeah, and I really liked the idea that Mr. Nobody is kind of a celebrity in this underground wannabe supervillains.
Right.
Like he's going, oh, I'd love to be Mr. Nobody. I mean, that's
Yes.
the holy grail.
That's the ultimate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that was just
That's
really
boss
nice.
level. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But so Steve is while they're down there in Paraguay, they meet Steve, and we've talked about him being this supervillain wannabe geek, and so while this is going on, you kind of have Cliff and Larry and Jane kind of getting interviewed, and basically they're kind of like trying to they're being approached about like, well, like what services do you require from us? Like, like, do you need new superpowers, or do you want to be normal again, or what have you? And
Funny
Jane,
sequence on the credit cards, right?
yes, yeah, I was just about to bring that up. That Jane like says, hey, if you want to, like, we'd appreciate your services, but so they're like, okay, well, do you have payment? And so Jane provides a credit card, and then another credit card, and another credit card, hinting that she steals a bunch of credit cards, and it's just one after the other, and they all end up not working. Like they end up being rejected, and finally she says, well, okay, well, hey, I've got the like 64 different superpowers because of my 64 different personalities. Can I trade my blood as payment? And they think about it for about a second and go like, okay. And Jane is essentially trying to get close to Von Fuchs.
Yes.
Here. She's trying to get to the meet and greet. And eventually she does. She confronts him. And we find out that, because he's like over 100 years old, has to be, this old Nazi scientist still kept alive, essentially like a puppet, if you notice, because he was in this kind of iron lung, but it was turned by a crank. So it's almost like he was the puppet as well, an
Yeah.
actual living puppet. And he basically gives Jane this kind of lowdown on what happened with her, which I thought was rather interesting.
Yes. So his premise, and I think Jane kind of agreed with it, is Jane is not the dominant. Jane is not the original personality. I do
Right,
think she is the dominant personality,
right.
but she is not core number one.
Yeah, yeah,
And we have not seen,
right.
unless, I guess the baby Jane, or no, the baby
Oh, you mean
doll.
Baby Doll? Yeah,
Yeah, could.
Baby Doll's not the core personality.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I
so
didn't think so, but
Jane has a real name,
okay.
and it's yeah, if you obviously do a little internet research, you could probably easily find that.
Yeah, I'm just yeah.
But if you don't want to be spoiled, I'm not going to mention
Yeah,
it
no,
here.
no, no.
But yeah, so there is a real person, real persona,
Okay.
and buried deep,
Mhm.
and hopefully eventually we'll find out more. But
Okay,
I know who
good.
it is. I'm
Yeah.
just not going to spoil it. But yeah, so apparently that she was being experimented on, according to Von Fuchs, and the trauma of being experimented on was supposedly what caused these multiple personalities to form in an attempt to protect the core personality.
Mhm.
Now, that's a kind of a major deviation from the comics, if that's the case.
Okay. Nice. Well, I thought it was a good twist.
Yeah. And
By the
apparently
way,
the one that saved her was the chief.
yeah, what I loved so much
Yeah.
is the idea. First off, you know, they're going to take the school bus, and they're all taking turns driving.
Yes, there
And
was a hilarious road trip. Yes.
it is just a hilarious road trip. That you're just like, oh, I
Yeah.
love this so much. And then, uh, whatever Jane's personality is that can transport, just like I got bored and like poof,
Yes.
was
Yeah,
just,
that was Flit.
okay.
That's her teleporting personality.
Yeah, and Flit's like, and I'm sure it's on the internet, all 64
Yeah.
characters and what the power is.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to get too far down the rabbit hole because
Right.
I'm enjoying this story so much. But
Well, for the purposes of this episode, because Flit was a major personality in this episode.
yeah. No, I'm just saying I am so
Yeah.
tempted to go find all the different personalities just to see, but I want to, just in case
It's
I'm
worth
surprised.
it.
Yeah.
It's worth going down the rabbit hole.
Okay, because I was surprised, like, oh wait, she has a transporter.
Yep.
So, and you wonder what other powers are out there. It's just been, I
Right.
just love this character.
Well, you notice that Vic is just like, well, what didn't like was it Robot Man or somebody? It's
Yeah,
just
Cliff.
like, well, yeah, Cliff is probably like, why didn't you do that? But in the first place.
Yeah,
And she talks about like, well, hey, that's because Flit does what she wants when she wants.
yes,
And she kind of gives Larry the eye, going like, see, this is what it's like
yeah.
when you respect your other personas.
Mm-hmm.
So, another interesting thing about this is when there's this big fight scene, when Cliff and Jane and whatnot fight all of the Fuchtopia controlled people,
Right.
and this big brawl. And I loved it, the fact that it was set to a classic punk song by the Dead Kennedys called Nazi Punks F Off, and I'm censoring that here.
Yeah.
But it was just this hardcore punk song, and then just this brawl. And in the process of this brawl, Cliff ends up kind of tearing these guys apart with his robot strength.
Yeah.
And it ends up horrified by that.
He is, with all
So what'd
the
you think
blood.
what did you think about that moment?
You. I thought it was interesting because it isn't, it isn't like he was being controlled by someone else. It's just
Right.
he lost his temper and realized, and, I always worry when he reached down to pet the stray cat, I bet you feel soft. I can't feel anything. And you always worry he can't control his own strength, or at least I did. And in this case, he just got so angry, and it was a great action sequence
Yeah.
and really well done.
Well, it's not like the
Yeah.
Nazis didn't have it coming. So
No, exactly. And it's Nazis,
yeah,
They're
exactly. It's
they're the fun villain.
right. Yeah. For those confused, it's okay to punch Nazis.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But so ultimately, Jane ends up killing Von Fuchs. As far as we know, he's dead.
Mhm.
Unless he projects, of course, his mind in another body somewhere. Dun dun
Right.
dun.
Could do, yes.
Yeah, so there's an out if they
Mhm.
decide to choose it or decide to use it. They end up going back on the plane back home, but after she wrecks the facility, she has Flaming Katie, her persona, Flaming Katie, this gigantic persona with a ball of flame for a head, just trashed the joint. But we find out at the end of the episode that in the wreckage of the facility, Steve emerges, and apparently Steve was getting treated by Von Fuchs.
Yes.
And he emerges with, hey, he's got a second dinosaur head, and he's got like a tree limb for an arm, and some minerals on his body and whatnot. So if you're a fan of the classic 1960s Doom Patrol era, and I thought this was a really great reset back to the original Doom Patrol series, he becomes this really obscure and kind of pretty lame supervillain called Animal Vegetable Mineral Man. And yes, that is his name. A rather horrible name for a rather horrible character. But so he's officially Animal Vegetable Mineral Man. So points to the Doom Patrol series for dredging up this rather obscure Doom Patrol villain.
Oh, I had no idea.
And then hopefully we'll see more of him later.
Though I did figure this had to be a real villain. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think it's like episode or issue 89 of Doom Patrol Volume 1 back in the day. So if you want to learn more about Animal Vegetable Mineral Man.
All right.
But if you don't, that's okay. But it's there if you want to.
Okay.
I thought it was a pretty cool shout out to old school Doom Patrol fans. All right. Anything else about this episode before we move on?
No, I thought it was a lot of fun, and I did love that Steve was he was not, he was like, cool,
Yeah, he was geeking out over it.
Yeah, he was. Absolutely. Yes.
All right. You got any favorite lines of the episode?
I don't have many, but I did have to just do one, and I only copied one of the lyrics, but just the whole Cliff giving Vic a hard time about printing.
Yes.
Like, where do you print this? Where do you get toner for your butt printer?
Yeah, that was Jane's line.
Yeah. But I love that whole interaction of them giving Vic this hard time, and him he truly does look like the teacher getting beat down by the smart Alec students. So I love that.
Yeah.
How about you? You always have great quotes.
Yeah. I mean, excuse me. One of the quotes that I liked was Cliff, when he's kind of going through the chief's things.
Yeah.
He's going through all the drawers, and he goes, "I think Chief might be a hoarder, and a diabetic, because he comes across this drawer full of Kit Kat bars and chocolates and whatnot."
So thank you, Charles.
Yes,
that is my rating. So I will
Well, that's
skip
a quote,
ahead.
you know.
I
Yeah.
will 8 out of 10 hidden Kit Kat bars was
Nice.
my rating for the
Nice.
show.
All
So
right.
yes, please continue.
That's all right. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because Grant Morrison established that the chief is a chocoholic.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool that they introduced that character trait.
Yeah, that is very cool. See,
All right.
that's a nice little wink to fans of the comic, because
Right.
I didn't know that, but I thought it was funny,
Yeah.
and so that's very cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. I liked another line from Cliff when he's kind of giving Cyborg a hard time. This was after the bus gets wiped out by the negative spirit, and they're forced to they're stuck by the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Cliff goes, "Impressive leadership skills there, Batman. Way to rally the team. Justice League 2020.
I also like the good old Bubba going to Vic, going,
Ring
what's
me.
Batman? Yeah, what's Batman really like? I've never met Batman. Oh,
Yes.
are you part of the Justice League? And just him, and he truly was.
And then he tries to get a selfie.
Yeah, that was
Dude,
was really funny.
Just go away. I'm trying to fix this thing.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah, that was a good, funny moment.
Mm-hmm.
There's that exchange between Larry and Jane, which we talked about earlier, where Larry goes, "There's something I've been wanting to ask you about. I'm curious how you managed to keep all your people in line." Jane says, "They're not my people. I don't control them. I respect them and their right to exist. Maybe if you weren't such an OCD alpha douche waffle, the negative spirit wouldn't treat you like one."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was good. And then lastly, I have the exchange between Jane and Von Fuchs, where Jane says, "You remember Niles, don't you? The guy who shot your Nazi ass? 10 times the scientist you'll ever be?" And Von Fuchs says, "Niles Calder is a fraud whose intelligence is devastatingly limited, whereas my genius is revolutionary." Jane replies, "Is it though? The creepy old Nazi shitbag keeping himself alive in some janky-ass iron lung doesn't feel super revolutionary to me."
Yeah.
So some major shade from Crazy Jane there.
Yeah, I just love this. This has been so. She is just amazing. This whole series is just really a lot of fun.
Such a fun character, and again, credit to Diane Guerrero, who's doing a killer job as Crazy Jane.
She really is.
So you're really stepping up to the plate. Loved it.
Yeah.
So you gave your rating 8 Kit Kat bars.
Yes, 8 hidden Kit Kat bars. Yes.
Right. So I was a little more generous. I gave this one 8.5 out of 10 Nazi puppets.
Ah, nice.
Because you got Nazi puppets.
Yeah.
Even Nazi puppets. I hate Nazi puppets.
Yeah. Why does it always have to be puppets?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just so awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our Titans Tower news segment, because I do have some news to talk about.
Very nice.
If you've followed my blog of Geeky Things, Damn Good Coffee, this week, you noticed that Titans has cast a major character for Titans Season 2. They've cast Joshua Orpin as Superboy, a.k.a. Connor Kent.
Yeah.
So this is the Con-El clone of Superman that is teenaged. And very looking forward to this because I like the character a lot. And they gave the character's official description from the series as Superboy, a.k.a. Connor Kent, is the angsty teenager of Steel searching for purpose and the truth about his past. While looking for answers, he crashes into the world of the Titans, where he finds an unlikely home and surrogate family, as well as revelations that carry more complications than he ever bargained for.
Okay.
And of course, Superboy was teased at the end of season 1 in the little post-credit scene. And so obviously they are going to be focusing on Superboy, hopefully after they wrap up some other storylines. Fingers crossed.
Yes, absolutely.
And apparently, while we're on the subject of season 2 of Titans, the site called Geeks Worldwide is reporting that they're going to be casting the Guardian, which of course is a character that was created by Jack Kirby that's part of the Cadmus Labs and is a clone of the original Guardian, Jim Harper, but kind of acts as kind of like an guardian, essentially, of the project, and is a superhero, and apparently is going to be, since they're doing Cadmus Labs and Superboy, apparently they're going to be possibly introducing the Guardian. But they've coded it as this character named Jack Cole, which I find interesting because that's the name of the guy who created Plastic Man.
Okay.
As a way to kind of throw you off the scent.
Okay.
And the character description is, as indomitable as he is mysterious, haunted by his past, Jack is a non-attention-seeking vigilante who's dedicated to his life to helping those in need. Underneath this ultimate gentleman is the ultimate fighting machine, but his success has come at a price, turning him into a sublime recluse. As Jack stops at nothing to ensure others have a better life than his own, the question looms large about whether he'll ever be able to let down his walls. So very intriguing.
Okay.
But
I am just nervous, and I've shared this before.
The Titans is doing too much?
Yes. I worry about that. I just worry that they're trying to all their.
I think they need to settle their team down.
Yeah, and I think like, oh, look, we have all these toys,
right?
Versus just okay, yeah.
It does seem to be a bit kind of like attention deficit disorder.
Yeah.
Where they're like, okay, shiny keys. Ooh, I want this. I want this. I want this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. Hopefully they figure out season 2.
Exactly.
Let's see. So we do have some feedback this week, which I do want to talk about.
Yay.
So thanks to everybody who wrote in this week. First writing in was Isaac from Michigan. So hi, Isaac.
Hey, Isaac.
Thank you for writing in. He writes in with the subject line, "You are doomed."
Nice.
Doomed. So he writes in, "Guys, as much as I really wanted to like Titans, it is as much as I actually liked Doom Patrol. The casting is amazing. Matt Bomer, Brendan Fraser, Timothy Dalton, and Alan Tudyk. Does it get any better? I think not."
Nice.
I know Dalton from Penny Dreadful, of course, but he was a favorite of mine in a favorite movie of mine, The Rocketeer. Yes, he was. He was very great. He was really great in The Rocketeer.
He was.
Bomer was in White Collar. Tudyk was in Firefly. My point is, they've done great work before, and they are doing great work here. This show is delightfully weird and heartfelt. Can't wait to see what comes next.
Good.
So thank you, Isaac.
Yeah, very nice.
Appreciate the feedback on that one. I'm glad you're enjoying the show, and hopefully you're enjoying the podcast as well. All right. Second writing in was DJ Nick.
Yay!
Yay. So Nick Pizzagoni writes in from Italy, Milan, Italy. Says, "Hey, guys. And wow, so far 3 great episodes of Doom Patrol. Joyvan Wade's portrayal of Cyborg is awesome, almost better than Ray Fisher's in Justice League.
Nice.
The choral effort on everybody's behalf is superb, though, and whoever thought we would see Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man on TV, right? I know I certainly didn't. And that's me saying that, not him.
Yeah.
Super happy so far, and hope you guys are too. All the best, brother Titan Talkers. Talk soon. Ciao."
Nice.
So ciao right back at you, Nick. Thank you for writing in. Glad to hear from your feedback again. And we get, lastly, of course, Holly from Wisconsin.
Hey, Holly.
Do you have her feedback, or do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead. You read it. I do
all
not have it.
Okay, so Holly writes in, "Hey, guys. Just discovered Doom Patrol and I have enjoyed every episode so far. The casting is fantastic. Alan Tudyk as a bad guy is so good. Nice to see Brendan Fraser again as well. This caught my interest when I found out that Mark Shepard was going to be on some episodes. Yes, he is, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. Loved Mark in all the shows that he's made appearances in, and can't wait for him to show up in episode 4. Also, Jeremy Carver, that's the showrunner on Doom Patrol, used to work on Supernatural, and I can kind of feel a bit of the Supernatural vibe in the show. Mm-hmm. Julian Richings as Von Fuchs is perfect casting. Have never read the Doom Patrol comics, but with the bits and pieces that you bring in while discussing the episodes, have made me enjoy the show even more. The group is slowly starting to find their footing with each other. I really don't have a favorite Patrol member as of yet, but I enjoy the moments on screen with each character. The mystery with the Chief is certainly keeping my interest. Well, I'll wrap it up here. Hollywood from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly.
Very nice.
And very glad you're enjoying the show. And you reached out to us on Facebook to also talk about that you're really digging the show, and that's awesome. I'm glad you are. There's a lot to enjoy, and if you ever decide you want to kind of read the Doom Patrol comics, highly recommended by yours truly.
Good.
All right. So Jesse, I guess, well, first let me say, if you want to be like Isaac from Michigan or DJ Nick or Holly from Wisconsin, you can tell it to Titan Talk. Write to us at titantalkcast@gmail.com. That's titantalkcast@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to us on Facebook at Titan Talk, the Titans Podcast. We'd love to have you hear from you there. Or you can reach out to us on the Twitter machine at Titan Talkcast. That would definitely be appreciated. And also, please, if you would, go to Southgate Media Group's website and support our Patreon there, because that helps keep the lights on here at Titan Talk. And also go to iTunes, rate and review us, because that helps people find us.
Absolutely. We are we haven't had a recent review, so that would be great to have.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And
as for you, Jesse, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Well, I can be found on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW.
Right.
You can hear me talking Doctor Who with Charles, somebody you may have heard.
Somebody.
Yes.
I am somebody.
Yes, you are. It is, and so we always love talking about that. And then I also talk about Bruce Springsteen in my Set Listing Bruce, a Bruce Springsteen podcast. And coming up, we are doing 40 episodes in a row for every day of Lent.
Wow.
40 days of Springsteen. So subscribe for that. They're going to be short episodes, so it won't take a lot of your day.
I was going to say, I thought you were cutting back.
These are only 2 to 3 minute episodes, and I have called on my friends to share if they have a favorite lyric to record a quick episode, and I'm adding it to it.
Oh, cool.
So that's very nice. And Charles, how about you? Where can we hear more of your wonderful work?
Well, you can reach me at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine, or at Charles Skaggs on the Instagram. Would definitely appreciate that. Facebook, of course, at Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. Or my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Titan Talk, including Titans or Doom Patrol or any of the other DC Universe TV shows. Any kind of casting news comes by, any kind of comic book sci-fi news, and news of my other podcasts I do for Southgate Media, including the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast with Jesse, or Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about all things Twin Peaks and David Lynch. Would definitely appreciate that if you would check that out, and I hope you enjoy it. Otherwise, next time on Titan Talk, we're going to talk Cult Patrol, which is the 4th episode of Doom Patrol Season 1.
We are seeing a theme.
Yes, we are. Again, the patrols. And this, we get the introduction of Willoughby Kipling from Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol run, played by Mark Sheppard. Now, Mark Sheppard, of course, if you're a fan of Doctor Who, played Canton Everett Delaware, the third on Doctor Who, in The Impossible Astronaut, if you remember that from Doctor Who Series 6. And has been big on Supernatural, of course. And he's been on things like The X-Files, all kinds of places. He's a great character actor. And he's playing Willoughby Kipling, which is a version of John Constantine, because Grant Morrison was not allowed to have the Doom Patrol interact with John Constantine back in the day. So he created this kind of version of the character, a little seedier version of John. It's going to be a very weird episode in episode 4, as Willoughby Kipling conscripts the Doom Patrol to help him avert the end of the world by stopping a nihilistic cult.
Oh, good.
And we're gonna see the Deke Creator, if you remember the Deke Creator from Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol run.
Good, very nice. I did need to share one of my favorite. I will not tell my favorite story about meeting Mark Sheppard at Dragon Con. If you guys want to hear it,
save that for next week.
time.
Yeah.
But I do need to share. TV critic Murray Ryan mused that Congress had passed the Mark Sheppard Full Employment Act because of how many TV shows he is on.
Right.
And if you go to his IMDb page, you will go, wow.
Yeah.
Dollhouse, Battlestar Galactica, Middleman, Bionic Woman, on and on and on and on.
Yeah, I first noticed him on X-Files back because he was in the episode Fire back in the day.
Yeah, Badger on Firefly. I mean, we'll talk about him full next episode, but truly a great guy and a wonderful actor. So, well, great. Well, Charles, for a show I wasn't so sure I was going to want to watch. This has just been such a great, pleasant surprise.
I am so glad you're enjoying it, Jesse. It not just because, it obviously helps us here in the podcast that you're actually enthusiastic about this, but I'm just glad you're digging the show because, obviously it's not something that's normally in your wheelhouse, and I'm just really glad that you've been open-minded enough to check it out and try it, and that you found it to your liking. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're getting something out of it. And obviously it's great to talk about that here with you week after week here on Titan Talk.
Yeah.
So can't wait to talk more next week. So we're going to talk Cult Patrol. So come on back as we talk the 4th episode of Doom Patrol right here on Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.